Hey, it's Chase with Sherpa Equipment Company, and today we got a second gen Tacoma in the shop. We're going to be installing a Grand Teton cab rack on it. So when you get your rack in the mail, you'll have your set of crossbars, you'll have your side plates for the rack, you'll have your fairing, and then you'll have your hardware and an order sheet with all of the hardware listed on there and checked off. In your hardware pack, you're going to have your mounting feet, which there's 3 different types. They're side specific and they are labeled for middle, rear, and front. You'll have your mounting rubber for the mounting feet. These are also going to match up with specific feet. You can tell by where the holes are on the rubber. Before we do any of the installing on the rack itself, we're going to take the weather stripping out of the channels on the top of the truck. And this all should pop relatively out. There is some adhesive foam on the backs of it though. Okay, so once you have your weather stripping out of the tracks, you can locate the holes that the mounting feet will bolt into by rubbing your finger. You can see the indent on the vinyl, and that's where you know your bolt holes are. Then all you do is take a knife or sharp object and poke through, kind of clear the vinyl away from the threaded area, enough to expose the thread so your bolt will slide through without gumming up. And this doesn't have to be too pretty. It's all going to be covered up by your rubber and your mounting feet, so just enough to expose the threads. Next step is we're going to be taking 3 crossbars out of the box and installing the mounting feet onto them before we install them onto the truck. So you're going to need your 3 different mounting feet, the crossbars, and all of your silver hardware, which is your 5/8 bolts, your washers, and your T-nuts. Just a quick mention, if you did get a silver rack, it will come with all silver hardware, opposed to a black rack that comes with black hardware and silver hardware. So you will have to identify your bolts and nuts and take them out separately. So we're going to mount the mounting feet onto the crossbars now. You got your fronts, middles, and rears, and you're going to want to make sure they're paired up with their matching mounting foot, and we'll put those on the crossbars next. So first, when we're installing the feet, we're going to want to install our T-nuts into the tracks on the crossbar, which you do by plopping in, round side down, and then getting the lips on either side of the edges so they sit flat. And then you're going to take your mounting feet and you want the Z side facing out. You can go ahead and line that up. Each one will take a 5/8 bolt and washer, and just lightly thread them into the T-nuts, enough that you can still slide the mounting foot back and forth to adjust it when it's on top of the truck. So next we're going to be pulling out our 45mm M6 roof bolts and our M6 bonded washers. We should have 10 of each, and we'll be using these to install the mounting feet onto the roof of the truck. Next step is we're going to be putting the rubber for the mounting feet in the roof tracks, and they are mounting foot specific. So the widest of the two goes in the back, medium in the front, and then the single goes in the middle. And they are not size specific, but they are offset a little bit, and the thin side of the rubber will be facing the inside rail of the truck. So you can go ahead and set those down, line those up with your exposed bolt holes, and then we'll be putting the feet on next. Now we'll be putting the crossbars with the mounting feet loosely attached onto the rubber. And you can tell the front side of each of the mounts by looking at the bottom, and the sloping down angle on the bottom of the mounting foot should follow the body line of the truck. And you can loosely set those on the rubber, and we'll be putting the roof bolts in next. So now we'll be taking our roof bolts and putting the bonded washer on, and it will be a tight fit. That's how it's supposed to be, so just keep that in mind. And when you're installing it, it might be a little easier to pick up the rubber and the mounting foot at the same time. Get your bolt started through both just to make sure it's lined up, and then you can line it up easier on your threaded portion in the roof track, just so you're not searching for that. And they should go in pretty easily without too much of a fight. So if you're struggling with it, you might be cross-threaded, just make sure you're not forcing anything. And these are 10mm, and we'll tighten those down after. So once you've got the threads started, you'll go ahead and tighten them down with a 10mm wrench, and you're going to want to tighten until the bonded washer, you start seeing the rubber crush out from the bottom of the washer. You don't want to over tighten these, because you'll lose your seal on those washers, which can cause corrosion in your roof later on. Here at Sherpa, we don't believe in using silicone on our racks. That's why we've designed a rack that utilizes OEM style rubber spacers, which can provide a complete seal, keep water out of your roof, and makes for a super easy, super clean install. Okay. So now that we got the front on, we're going to do that with the same thing with the other two crossbars, the middle and the rear. Middle feet on this rack are not side specific, so those can be interchanged. Your rear feet are side specific, so again, you're just going to want to match the bottom of the mounting foot with the body line of the truck. So next step, with all of our crossbars installed, they all should still be loose and able to slide. We're going to take a tape measure and measure from the end of the crossbar to the inside face of the mounting foot. And we're going to want to match up this measurement on both sides to ensure that they're square on the truck. And we will be doing this on all three crossbars. It's important to note that none of the measurements will be the same going down, and we don't give a measurement because all trucks vary slightly. So now that these are all squared up on top of the truck, you are going to want to grab a 7/16 wrench, and you can go ahead and tighten down the bolts that attach the mounting feet to the crossbars. And these just need to be snug, no reason to over tighten them. So next step is we're going to be putting the side plates on. And for this, you're going to need 6 1/4x20x1 socket button bolts for each side. And you are going to need your side plates. Right. Now that we got our side plates out, one thing to notice is these are also side specific. You're going to want the letters to read on the outside. So this is a driver's side, and then your other in your package should be a passenger. For mounting the side plates, you're going to want to line up your small slots with each of the crossbars, and then you can go ahead and get your bolts started, threaded into the end of the crossbar. Now that the bolts are started, we're going to leave them a little bit loose so we can adjust the side plate to match the roof line of the truck. And usually it's easiest to do this once the other side plate's on and the fairing, so the whole side plate, or the whole rack moves as one. So now that we got the side plates on, next step is optional. If you want to put your weather stripping back in, you're going to need to cut it. So we recommend using a pair of wire snips. There's a wire that runs down the core of this. And pretty much you'll just cut it to fit around the mounting feet. And you don't need to use glue, you can if you'd like to, but we found that it sticks in the tracks pretty well without it. And yeah, so you can just go ahead and snip this up if you'd like. And there's no real right or wrong method to do this. Whatever works easiest for you. You could mark it with a Sharpie, cut it off the truck, or you can just go mark it with your finger and cut one section at a time like we've been doing. So next we're going to install the fairing on the truck, but first we have to install it onto one of the crossbars. So you're going to take another crossbar to your box, and first things first, we're going to install 6 T-nuts into the crossbar. A way you can help line yourself up for down the road is line your fairing right next to your crossbar, and you can kind of ballpark these T-nuts right about where the holes are in the fairing. And then place the fairing on top of the crossbar and slide it until you see your T-nuts lined up back there on the fairing. And it's important to leave these loose while you're putting them all in, so you can slide your fairing back and forth if you need to find your T-nuts down there. We can go ahead and square the fairing up with the crossbar, and once that's all squared away, you can go ahead and tighten those down. And again, with these little bolts, no need to over tighten them, just get them nice and snug. Alright, so now all these are tightened down. The fairing's ready to go onto the truck, and we're going to need 4 more of our 1/4 by 1 black button head bolts. And this is a good step too if you have somebody available to give you a hand lifting it up onto the truck and holding it in place while you secure it down. Okay, so with your buddy holding one of the ends, you can go ahead and get your bolts started, threaded into the crossbars. And again, it's important to just thread these in loosely for now, because we will be adjusting the fairing to the correct height. So once you got both bolts in on both sides, you can go ahead and adjust your fairing to your desired height. We usually like to line the weather edge trim up with the bottom edge of the side plate. And once you get your desired height there, you just want to make sure it's off the roof, and then you can go ahead and tighten them down. And again, just snug on these, no need to over tighten. These fairings do have a slot that allow it to be adjusted, so if you are having wind noise or rattling or vibration of any sort, you can adjust it to your desired height to make it as quiet as possible. Now that we got the fairing on and both side plates loosely on, you can go ahead and adjust it if you need to, forward and backwards, to make the bottom of the side plate line up with the line of the truck. Now once everything's squared away on top, you can go ahead and tighten these down just snugly. And while you still have your friend here, it's a good idea to have him hang out while we put the remaining crossbars in. So now we've got the final crossbars installed, it's a good idea to go through the rack, give it a once over, make sure all your hardware is tight. It's also a good idea after about 100 miles or so to go through, make sure everything's still tight. And if you have any questions or concerns during the install process, feel free to give us a call, shoot us an email. Rack looks great on the truck, and now you can adventure with confidence.